With us now, one of the newest senators, Angus King of Maine. Senator, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Good morning.
Do you think, what do you think the confirmation of Chuck Hagel depends on?
I think it depends on him convincing a number of members of the Senate, particularly Senator Schumer, that he's got a balanced approach to the Middle East, that he has the right temperament, the right background. I think I start with the premise that he's the president's nominee for the president's cabinet, that I have a different standard. I think the president, there's a presumption that the president should be able to appoint his own people. Judges are a little different because that's lifetime tenure. That continues into a different presidency. But I think it's going to depend a lot on conversations that Chuck Hagel has over the next couple of weeks. I'm reserving judgment myself. I'm on the Armed Services Committee and will hear the nomination. I'm going to have some questions. I will probably be meeting with him later this week, and I want to understand where he's coming from. But he's a solid guy with a lot of strong support. And the other thing I want to listen to is from people who have worked with him over the years, other ambassadors, people like Colin Powell.
Let's turn now to the issue of gun control legislation. As you know, Vice President Biden is going to be delivering his recommendations to the president tomorrow. Do you think anything gets passed out of Congress in the end? I
think something probably will. It's a little hard to tell now. I'm not even sure whether. I thought it was very interesting that Vice President Biden last week, when he was sort of giving a preview, did not mention an assault weapon ban.
Yes.
It wasn't. Now, it may be in the recommendations ultimately. But
would you support mandatory background checks? I think
that mandatory background checks and also stronger penalties for people that lie on background checks. And I think we have to broaden they have to do something about the so-called gun show loophole where people don't have to do background checks. Broader background checks. It's really got to be a comprehensive policy, I think. But the biggest issue to me is the size of the magazines. That's sort of the common thread that connects a lot of these massacres. The assault weapon ban is a tough one because it's hard to define what an assault weapon is. And if we're just defining it by what it looks like, that doesn't do much for me. I'm much more interested in the functionality and whether that's really a different weapon than my buddy's semi-automatic hunting rifle.
Maine has what kind of gun control laws, and do they work?
Well, they do work, but I think it's part of the culture. Maine is one of the highest gun-owning states in the country with one of the lowest gun crimes because we have a long history of hunting and firearm use and care and training and all of those kinds of things. But for example, if you go hunting in Maine, you can't have more than a 5-bullet magazine in your rifle. And I've talked to some friends in the gun community in Maine. They call that the fair chase rule.
Can I ask you just quickly, too, about the debt ceiling, because we're approaching that, and we've heard from the Obama administration they have no backup plan if Congress does not raise the debt ceiling. And the head of the House Republican Conference, Cathy McMorris Rodgers, says, I think it's possible we should shut down the government to make sure the president understands we're serious. What do you think of that kind of talk?
That's a terrible statement to make. Shutting down government is different. Now, we got to be clear here. Shutting down government in a budget fight is one thing. That's okay. That's, you can argue about that. The debt ceiling, however, is messing around with the full faith and credit of the United States. It would be bad for the economy. When we played that game of Russian roulette back in August of 2011, you could see the economy decline. You could see job creation going away. I'm with Newt Gingrich on this one. Newt Gingrich has taken a strong position that that the Republicans should not use the debt ceiling as leverage in this cutting spending. Let's use the continuing resolution, let's use the sequester, but don't use the debt ceiling. That's a bad idea.
The president said he won't negotiate on the debt ceiling.
I think he's right on that.
Senator King, thank you. Good to see you.
Good morning. Nice to see you all.